Did you know that a staggering $10 billion is lost annually due to international phone scams, with India at the epicenter of this operation? What started as a booming outsourcing industry has given way to a shadow economy of fraudulent schemes targeting vulnerable Americans, particularly the elderly. While U.S. authorities grapple with jurisdictional challenges and technological hurdles, scammers continue to exploit loopholes, turning trust into a weapon. This story of greed, innovation, and failure to regulate sheds light on the darker side of globalization and the urgent need for solutions. You might be surprised. India has long been a hub for global outsourcing, especially in customer service and technical support. With its large English-speaking workforce and competitive pricing, the country emerged as a favorite for companies seeking cost-effective solutions. However, as outsourcing trends shifted, India became infamous for another industry: phone scams. Today, call centers once dedicated to legitimate operations now house fraud rings exploiting unsuspecting victims. The scale of these operations is mind-blowing. Fake IRS calls, tech support scams, and lottery fraud have become common, luring Americans into parting with their hard-earned money. It's hard to imagine that something as mundane as a phone call could wreak havoc on so many lives. Yet, it does, and in staggering numbers. While many scammers operate under the guise of large organizations, others function independently, supported by lax enforcement and a growing market of naive targets. The ease of accessing personal data in today's digital age only accelerates their success. The rise and fall of Indian call centers. In the 2000s, India was synonymous with call centers. American companies flocked to outsource customer service, saving millions while benefiting from India's massive labor pool. However, competition arose as the Philippines offered not just affordability but superior communication skills and customer satisfaction. This shift forced many Indian call centers out of business. What happens when jobs dry up? Unfortunately, desperation can lead to unethical ventures. Many former employees of these call centers turned their skills in communication and sales towards fraud, creating an industry where manipulation became the currency. Scammers now mimic the professionalism of legitimate businesses to deceive their victims. The decline of India's call center reputation marked a critical turning point. Once lauded as the global leader in outsourcing, the country now battles the stigma of being a haven for fraudsters. The economic impact on the U.S. Phone scams cost Americans billions annually, with the elderly being the hardest hit. These scams not only drain individuals of their life savings but also destabilize the economy by creating distrust in digital and phone-based transactions. The psychological toll is equally devastating, with victims often ashamed to report their losses. The U.S. government has tried to tackle this issue with varying success. Joint efforts with Indian authorities have resulted in some arrests, but the vast majority of scammers remain untouched. This lack of enforcement emboldens fraudsters, who view the risks as negligible compared to the potential rewards. Moreover, the cost of combating these scams, through investigations, cybersecurity measures, and consumer education, is a financial burden in itself. It's a vicious cycle, with no easy resolution in sight. Tech support scams and IRS fraud. Among the most notorious scams are those involving fake tech support and fraudulent IRS agents. In tech support schemes, scammers pose as representatives from major companies like Microsoft or Amazon, convincing victims that their devices are compromised. These services often involve hefty fees for non-existent repairs. The IRS scam, on the other hand, relies on fear. Victims are told they owe back taxes and must pay immediately to avoid legal action. Scammers exploit the average citizen's unfamiliarity with tax laws, creating a sense of urgency that clouds judgment. These scams thrive on their simplicity and effectiveness. By targeting emotional vulnerabilities, fear, confusion, and trust, they can manipulate victims into compliance with alarming ease. The role of scam baiters. In a fascinating twist, some individuals have taken it upon themselves to fight back against scammers. Known as scam baiters, these hackers and vigilantes infiltrate fraudulent operations to waste the scammers' time and resources. By keeping them occupied, they aim to protect potential victims from falling prey. Scam baiters often use humor and wit to expose scammers. They record their interactions, sharing them online to raise awareness. While their efforts may seem small in the grand scheme of things, they serve as a powerful reminder that even ordinary people can take a stand against injustice. These digital warriors highlight the importance of public awareness in combating scams. The more people understand how these schemes work, the harder it becomes for scammers to succeed. Challenges in regulation and enforcement. One of the biggest hurdles in addressing these scams is jurisdiction. While the crimes primarily target Americans, the perpetrators operate in India, complicating enforcement efforts. International collaboration between law enforcement agencies has proven essential but far from sufficient. Another challenge is the rapid evolution of technology. Scammers constantly adapt to new tools and platforms, staying one step ahead of the authorities. From spoofing caller IDs to encrypting their communications, they leverage cutting-edge technology to shield themselves from detection. Despite these obstacles, some progress has been made. Increased cooperation between the US and India has led to the shutdown of a few call center scams. However, much work remains to be done to dismantle this billion-dollar industry. What does the future hold? The future of combating phone scams depends on two factors: innovation and regulation. Governments must invest in advanced cybersecurity technologies to track and neutralize scammers effectively. Simultaneously, stricter laws and harsher penalties could deter potential offenders. On a global scale, nations must work together to establish frameworks for tackling cross-border crimes. Strengthening consumer education is equally crucial. When individuals can recognize red flags and refuse to engage, the power of these scams diminishes significantly. Ultimately, the fight against phone scams is a shared responsibility. It requires the combined efforts of governments, companies, and individuals to create a safer digital world. The $10 billion question remains: how do we put an end to these scams? While progress has been made, the road ahead is long and fraught with challenges. Awareness is key. Educating yourself and others can make a significant difference. Have you ever received a suspicious call? How would you handle it differently now? The annual $10 billion that silently flows from the US to India is more than just a financial anomaly. It's a testament to the complexity of globalization and a stark reminder of the gaps that still exist in international economic systems. This recurring phenomenon is not merely about trade imbalances. It unveils a deeper narrative of how nations maneuver within a global framework where rules often lag behind rapid economic innovation. At its core, this issue reflects a fundamental question: how can global trade remain both dynamic and fair when the system itself struggles to evolve? Indian enterprises have shown remarkable ingenuity in capitalizing on the cracks in US regulatory systems, leveraging strategies like underinvoicing exports, exploiting outdated tax treaties, and optimizing supply chain efficiencies to their advantage. While this demonstrates the resourcefulness of Indian industries, it also exposes vulnerabilities in the US framework that allow such massive diversions to go unchecked. Yet, this isn't merely about money, it's about influence. The $10 billion represents economic leverage in an interconnected world, where financial flows are as much about strategy as they are about profit. The stakes couldn't be higher. The US, as a global economic leader, faces the challenge of modernizing its policies to close these gaps without jeopardizing the openness of international trade. India, on the other hand, must balance its strategic gains with the responsibility of maintaining trust and equitable partnerships in global markets. The solution won't be simple. It will require cooperation, innovation, and a re-evaluation of trade agreements that currently seem more suited to the 20th century than the 21st, introducing advanced technologies for monitoring, fostering bilateral dialogues, and implementing systems for greater transparency are just a few steps that could help reshape this narrative. Yet, beyond the technicalities, this issue raises critical questions about the future of globalization itself. Are nations prepared to embrace a more collaborative and equitable approach, or will these economic games continue to define international relations? And as individuals, we are left with our own reflections. What does it mean for the broader global economy when such vast sums shift hands under the radar? And how can we, as global citizens, contribute to a dialogue that encourages accountability and fairness? This $10 billion is more than a number, it's a call to action. It's a story of opportunity, vulnerability, and the power dynamics that shape our world. The question isn't just what governments will do next, it's what we will demand from a system that impacts all of us. What's your take on this silent economic battle, and how do you see its role in shaping the future of global trade?